Hello, we're here, we're live.
Hello.
Yes, we're back. Surprise!
Surprise!
This is one of those rare occasions where a Coding Train episode is planned within like 15 minutes. But that's not entirely true because Shirley, welcome again to Shirley Wu.
Thank you.
Guest from last Friday's regularly scheduled, nothing is ever regularly scheduled, but somewhat consistently on Fridays I have been live streaming. And we, mostly Shirley, but I'll say we since I was also here, did a tutorial around working with D3.js for data visualization. And it was completely my fault that I made sure I had Shirley, rush, hurry up, we have to go, gotta go. So there was very little time. I'm just checking the chat to make sure nobody is saying focus alert. I will focus the camera. I forgot to focus the camera.
Oh.
So we're soft focus. I look nicer in soft focus. Anyway. We rushed through a lot of stuff, and I felt like that wasn't fair to Shirley. And so here we are back. Shirley generously had a little bit extra time today. Shirley's here actually at ITP doing a fellowship, working on a bunch of really. So you should go to her social media and see you're making all these like physical things.
Yeah, I'm so
Can you
excited.
talk about that for a minute while I focus
course.
The camera?
Yes. Okay. So I don't know how to talk about this without any visual aid. Oh, actually, I could have visual aid, right? I could just open up a browser.
Yeah.
Which you have hidden away. So
it's on the dock is on the left side. It's
I'll
confusing.
just do this. Ooh, look at all these things that showed up. Okay.
You're like typing, but the laptop's not actually on screen. I forgot about that.
Okay,
Yeah, no, it's
okay.
fine. It will be now in a second.
Okay.
There it is.
So I'm at ITP because usually I do data visualization in the web, so it's very very digital. But I've been wanting to kind of broaden my horizons and get more into the physical world. So I've been auditing 2 of the classes here, and one has to do with like Arduinos and sensors, and the other one. I'm like scrolling through all of my media, and it's like kind of embarrassing. And the other one has to do with fabrication. So I'm doing 2 projects, one final project with the students, and it's going to be a physical data visualization of women in computing. I'm really excited.
This is the one with the laser cut.
No.
No,
this is the one that we're still prototyping. So it's going to be like an actual installation you walk through, and there's going to be hanging lights. And it's going to be hanging in like orbs, and then the idea is that as you walk through the orbs, each of them represent a woman that had a great contribution in computing. But the thing is that most of them, we don't know about most of them. So at the beginning of the installation, they're all going to start out really dim because they're not very well known. And as people go through, they're invited to kind of like see an orb, kind of interact with it, read more about the woman, and there's going to be details in the orb. And every time someone reads more about them, they glow brighter and a little bit brighter and a little bit brighter. And the hope is that by the end of the exhibit, like all of them will be lit up a lot more.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and then so as you walk through, so there's a lot of like kind of data encoded into it. So it's going to be my first like kind of big data installation that like people can actually walk through. So that's the one I've been working on. That's what this tilt switch is for, that I was playing with, because then when someone interacts with, so I don't know if you can see, but yeah, like as that switch is being tilted, the LED lights up. And so that's going to be how we control like when someone interacts with the orb. That's how we sense that they're like interacting with it. So the one that you saw with the laser cut, so this is kind of the prototyping for that. Like
for the orbs.
For the orbs, yeah. It's like mysterious. Oh, look, she's so cool. She is prolific inventor and co-founder and CTO of One Laptop Per Child. But yeah, and then the other one you saw is this one.
This one, right, okay.
And this is just for fabrication homework, where I wanted to, these are some of the women Nobel laureates, and this is a prototype base, but the idea is to light the LEDs from the bottom, or sorry, light the crystals from the bottom. And so this is kind of the latest iteration I was working on yesterday. So like then they're color coded by the category of their award, and so I'm gonna put the crystals on top of the lights, and then it's gonna glow the different colors.
This is great. So fun to see because, you know, I'm somewhat of, I wouldn't say like an anomaly here, but so many people at this program at ITP and IMA work with physical computing and fabrication and building physical devices and making three-dimensional objects that live in the real world. And I kind of fall back to my safe, happy place of software, which has its own problems and complexities. But it's great to see. I know that you have done so much work with data visualization on screen in the browser. D3, that's what we're talking about. That's what we talked about on Friday, what we're talking about today. So it's really, I find it always exciting to see people move into, and to break through that, what can be scary, and start to make physical stuff.
But it's been such a friendly, supportive environment. Like I realized how deeply I am in software, so much so that even the most obvious physical things I don't see. Like earlier today, I was talking to one of the residents, and I was like, "Oh, I need to build in a switch," and he's like, "No, just unplug it." And I'm like, "Oh." I was plugging a battery into an Arduino, and I'm like, oh, now I should build a switch to control on and off. And he's like, no, you can just unplug it.
That's
and I was like, oh, yes. But yeah, so that was a
cool. I am going to, by the way, I think I mentioned this, but I'm going to be wading into laser cutting myself. Sai, who's a student here, and I are going to work on. I have it's going to arrive sometime this week, a box of 250 train whistles. And I'm going to try to laser etch the coding train into them and send them out as Patreon. But I think I'm not going to use Patreon. But it's a longer story that I will get to at another. Maybe I'll talk about more in this Friday's live stream. There's little membership gifts for people. Okay. So let's move on because we do have, we will hopefully won't be super rushed today, but we'll be here till about 5 o'clock. So that's about 45 minutes.
Let's aim for 4:45.
Well, that's a half an hour from now. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of let Shirley take the lead here. Let me at least open up what we made before, and I will try to, in my own words, kind of recap what we did, and then you can tell me if I kind of understood it correctly. And then we will also take your questions. And Peter is asking, can you explain how to iterate over the films again? So that has to do with kind of the interrupter exit stuff?
Well, so
not that we need to answer that right now. I'm just trying to pinpoint where.
So I feel like there's two parts he could be talking about. One, when we loop through the data itself to calculate and use the scales.
Got it.
But he's probably talking about the enter, update, exit part where we're iterating through the SVG elements.
Yeah. So we'll make the jump. What we coded somewhat step by step last time was how to make one flower based on one movie. But then we really quickly, when I'm saying we again, it was Shirley who did it. Shirley very quickly just added some code. And so yes, let's try to take some time to unpack that. And I also would love to show a couple of the projects that people made based on this. So I know there were. So let me first recap, and I'm going to try to spend less than 2 minutes doing this. So the first thing that I learned from Shirley is that syntax for creating a path in SVG.
Yeah.
M for move. C for curve 2. There was also L for line 2.
Yes.
And then that's really that's what's happening here. This pedal path is start here, start at the top, curve to the bottom, and then curve again back to the top. And so this is a very simplistic design, and maybe Shirley will touch on how you might make that more beautiful, or you could look at her actual film. What's it called again? Film Flowers project to see. So that's what we learned. Then we could actually put that on an HTML page by creating an SVG element. And all this is happening in an observable notebook, which is like the P5 web editor in the sense that I'm coding in the browser, but very different in that it's got cells that can be executed separately, uses require, a bunch of different syntax things. Okay. Then we loaded the D3 library. That's the primary library we're using in these code examples. Then we loaded a JSON file that has all this information about movies, in particular their the year they were released, their box office,
Yeah.
the number of the ratings, things like that.
A lot of metadata.
Metadata about the movie. Then what we did was use, and now I'm going to just like sort of make this discussion much shorter. We used the D3 library. So if I go up here and look at the data, we can see here's the movie Die Hard 2 and all of the data associated with that movie. Then we use the D3 library to parse out two pieces of data. The rating, and what was the number of votes again?
So number of IMDb votes, so basically the number of people that like rated the movie.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So, and those pieces of data were used to design the flower.
Yes.
And so all of this functionality that you're seeing, like extend, scale linear, quantize, all of these are D3, built-in D3 functions that perform common operations on data, like remap it from this range to this range, or invert it, or multiply it by this, or that kind of stuff. And so we did that, and once that was done, there is now this sort of crucial piece of code, which I think is kind of what you want to re-explain a bit.
Yes.
And this crucial piece of code, after the data is parsed and remapped to all the appropriate ranges, it takes the data and makes the flowers out of it through this process called enter, update, exit.
Yeah.
But we're only using enter for this particular example.
Yes. Yeah. And we were talking about, I think, going through the enter, update, exit, and then kind of talking about steps of maybe what people that are watching might be able to do to kind of like complete the project.
Right.
And so do you want to do which one do
I
you want
think
to
you
do?
should start with explaining more slowly any of the bits
Yeah.
you thought you had to rush through.
Yeah.
And you can do that on the whiteboard. Let me turn the whiteboard camera on.
Yes, and I would love any.
And I will keep an eye on the chat.
Yes, that'd be great. I think I would love any questions to do with the enter, update, exit, and I think that is Peter's question.
Peter's question, yeah.
Um,
And Simon
yeah.
is giving us some information about details of SVG tags.
Yes.
And so let me just make sure this works if I switch to here. Oops, no, that's the wrong button. Okay, the audio should be back. That was my fault. So all right, I think I might know what's going on here. So let me just do this. The sound should be back, and hopefully the whiteboard's going to be back in a second. People can still hear me. Okay, video capture device, existing. Oh, weird. Something happened. Create new. Okay, everybody, I realize that's the green screen. That's no signal. That's the computer. This should be the whiteboard. There we go. We're back in business. Save.
Yay.
I don't know what happened there. So can say something for a second, Shirley.
Hello.
Okay, your mic is good. So now we're back in business. So you can go back to whatever discussion you wanted to have with the viewers, and I will keep an eye on the chat.
Okay, so we did this last Friday where I like super intensely rushed through enter, update, exit, and that was the kind of the one that I wanted to go over. And then if we have more questions about other parts of what we went over on Friday, I would love to answer that too. But I'm gonna start with this, and then hopefully like questions will come in as we're doing this. So what I wanted to do is kind of give a more concrete example of like something that you might actually do when you're working with data or working with D3 and data. And so let's make this like hypothetical data set of, I'm just gonna start with 3. So let's just say I want to draw like 3 circles and I want to like map my data to that. So this is my data, and let's see, I'm just making things up right now. Let's see, so my data is an array of 3 objects, and each object has an ID and a radius number. And so let's say that this is our SVG, what our SVG currently looks like. And so we talked about last week about how what D3 goes and does when we say D3.select. And we always have to go select the SVG. And then when we say .select all, and let's say that this time we're trying to draw circles. And so we're going to select all circles that are in the SVG. And right now, what we said last week is there's nothing that exists in the SVG, and so that would return an empty selection. And then the 3 kind of most common things that you see in D3, or that you saw in D3, I think in version 4 and before, was this kind of pattern called data enter append. And actually, I think in version 5 or a newer version, I think we now have a different, it's a different method. But I'll cover this first, and then I'll talk about the new method. Because it's conceptually still the same. The new method just makes the code part easier. And so we'll pass in, let me just, I always name it data and then I regret it. So we have values. Let me just call it values, and we're going to pass in values. And this is the part that I kind of wanted to explain in more detail, which is in D3.data, this method actually can take in a potential second argument, and we call that the key function. And so with the key function, if anybody's ever used React or Vue, that's probably really familiar to you, because every time you try to render an array of something, like they'll scream at you and be like, for best practices, enter a key function. And so that's the same concept. But, not I. And let me do this first. And we'll say whatever is, so let me do this and then I'll explain it.
And just watch out that actually the camera only gets to about here.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. So I'm gonna stop this right here, and I'm gonna kind of go back to here and say, I'm gonna try and color code it. So let me say that my values here, so like my actual data that I'm trying to bind are this kind of like 1, 5, this ID is 1 and radius is 5, and then I'm trying to bind, you know, ID is 2 and radius is 10, 350. And so when D3 sees this .data, what it's doing underneath the hood is it's going to take this array of values, and when you pass in data, it has to be an array, or else you're going to get an error. And D3 is saying, okay, let's loop through each of these, identify what the key is. So this is where it's like looping through each of the elements in the data and identifying what the key is. So it's saying, okay, the key is 1, the key is 2, key is 3. And then it will look in the DOM and it will say, okay, is there any elements that are existing in the DOM that are circle elements that have the key ID 1, key ID 2, key ID 3. And it'll be like, oh no, there isn't any of those. And so it will be like, okay, so the there will be an enter selection.
I think I understand this now. You keep going.
And there will be an enter selection that D3 calculates. This function calculates, and it's saying like, oh, I need to. I'm trying to figure out. Hold on. Let me have like an actual like color coding of like. Okay, so all concepts are going to be in blue. All data are going to be green, and all SVG elements are red from now on. So it's going to be called an enter selection. And it says that because there's none of those things that match like all that criteria existing in the DOM, that means I need to go and create 3 circle elements. And we're going to get into, yes,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
So if those did exist, would it then would just like grab those elements? And okay, so enter, but most typically is sort of the first thing that happens based on the data, and if the stuff isn't there, so it creates them, creates the DOM elements.
Well, D3 does not do anything for you. You have to create it, so you have the option. So let me actually.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, and so let me rephrase what I said a little bit. So the method data will say you need to we need to create 3 circle elements to be able to match the data. So it like has this data structure. If you like actually look at the DOM element and like it has all this like it just says I have 3 placeholders if you ever want to go and create 3 DOM elements. So that the reason why I'm making this like really like that distinction is then the reason why you do .enter is because you're telling D3, okay, I understand that there is something in the enter selection, and so please return me these 3 placeholders. And then when we do .append, we're saying for each of these placeholders, actually make me. So when I do .append, so actually
this makes the DOM element.
Yes. So
and we had G in our example because this is an example that's simplified, that's just making some circles, but ours made a group that we then put a whole bunch of petals and things in.
Yes. Perfect. So actually, let me do this over here. So this over here is the enter. Like it's saying, return me the enter selection.
And is it making these DOM elements, the circles, with the ID that's here in the data?
Yeah, so actually, you know what would be fun? Let's actually go into our, what we created, and let's inspect the elements. Actually, can you console log every group? So let me just finish drawing this really quick. So here, what enter does is give you back 3 placeholders, and what append does is actually create these 3 DOM elements in the 3 circle elements in the DOM with the data bound to it. And when you console log, we'll be able to see what that means.
So when you say console log, right now the result of this whole process is stored in a variable called flowers.
Yes.
Console log that object?
Sure.
Okay. Like this?
Yeah,
Here,
perfect.
I can, I'm like, there we go. Sorry, everybody. I'm like, all my buttons are in different places. Console log flowers. So if I run this, then if I look at the console, let me do this again.
And so you'll see.
These are the.
That's our data.
This is the.
And so this is actually what D3 would return you.
I see.
And what it's saying is that it has 135 group elements, and and then the most important.
I'm going to do my code Vanna White.
Okay, so what the most important part of this, so this is what like a DOM element looks like, right? And what D3 does is it kind of makes this.
Oh!
Yeah!
It puts the data in there.
That's the data. So when people are like D3 binds the data, like this is what they mean. It actually like makes this little attribute like called like underscore underscore data, and then you can see this is the data we created here, the pet size, num petals, and the array of petals.
Right, okay. And that's what we're about to use down here.
And so I think there was Peter's question was like, how did you loop through the films? And so what actually happens, so actually, do you want to come?
No, good, yeah,
So what actually happens is when we do any of these .adder or .style, what's happening under the hood is that D3 is applying this function that we passed in to every single one of
those DOM elements G over here.
Yeah, so yes, every single one of these DOM elements, and in every one of these functions.
And we can actually see that right there in the, sorry, I'm interrupting you, in the transform.
In the what?
Can we actually see that in there was like there's a property there that would have this translate in it, the transform property.
Yeah. So I think if you want
I think
to
it was
see
there under T.
So that part is not actually
that's a different thing.
That's a part of just like HTML and SVG. And so like basically D3 is just abstracting some like DOM manipulation stuff for you. But in this function, under style.
Under transform.
It's probably under the transform one that you found. This is
it's hard.
This is really big. Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know if you want to get into this.
No, I don't. Definitely do not.
Okay.
That was my fault.
Okay.
Go on.
But so it's and this function, what we're doing is we're getting the data, this data per group element, and then we're evaluating it, and D3 is looping through it under the hood and applying whatever is being returned to each of those group elements. And so that's how D3, that's how we use D3 to kind of apply data to each element. So usually after you see this, there's a .adder. Oh, sorry, yeah. Usually after you see this set of code, you'll see .adder. So actually what I was
adder is short for attribute.
Oh, yes.
Which
sorry,
is an HTML element it has attributes, one of which is this like style.
So I'm just gonna represent this as 1, 5, 2, 10, and 3, 50. Okay, so this is what happens when we do enter. And then I'm gonna try and talk about update and exit.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So we only needed enter in our example because we were just like creating the visualization.
Yeah.
So if it's going to change over time or something different is going to happen later, it's going to animate, or maybe that's why we would need to add update?
Yeah, update and exit.
So if it's a static visualization, you only need enter.
Yes.
If it animates, you need update.
Even if it does not animate, but like
just changes value.
it changes value.
Got it.
So let me just show that really quickly. Really quickly. Value. Let me say that now that we've drawn. Okay, so in here, I wish I'm like on my computer right now and I can just like cut this out and like drag this over here and put it in here.
Right.
But
one of these days.
So because this is recorded, I'm just gonna erase this so we have more room.
Yeah.
I saw somewhere in the chat that was like, no, don't erase or something. Okay.
It's all being saved until As long as it's not the internet apocalypse, you'll be able to find this material.
Okay, so then let's say now that we've created all of this, let's say now for whatever reason we want to show the second state of data or a second set of data. And let's say that in this second state, we still have, let's say, ID 2, R10, but let's say we have, actually, you know what? And let's say in the second state, the radius actually goes up to 20. And then let's say we have a new thing, and I'm going to call it ID 4. And this one is going to have radius of 30. I am making all of this up.
So just to understand that for a second, the idea here is that if these are all tied to circles, this is now in a way a new value for an existing circle, and this is now a new circle. Because the idea is the key for each piece of data.
Yes. So exactly. So let's go through that together. So I'm gonna say, this was, okay, let me now, I'm trying to decide how I want to go about this. Let's still go use these, no, I'll draw a new one. So we now have 3 circles, and this is, I'm just only going to draw the ID. This is ID 1, 2, and 3, and the radius is 5, 10, 50.
This is the result after here.
After that.
Got it.
Yes, thank you. And then our new data. Okay, our new data is ID 2 and radius 20 and ID 4 radius 30. So just like you said, Dan, do you want to do it? Do you want to? So where's
well,
the
we would say where do we have to say .data again?
No. Well, so let's
or
just
update?
talk.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. Let's just talk conceptually first.
Yes.
And so let's say that we want the very first. The order I usually do it is actually I exit first.
Got
And
it.
so,
You can exit after an enter?
actually no, I think you're right. Let's do it with the code. And so I'm gonna change.
We erased that.
I know.
But we needed that enter.
No.
Oh, you just have update, no enter?
Wait. We'll get there. We'll get there.
I was so understanding with the enter.
That code we have is
Okay.
only if we only need to enter. So now let's
okay.
say we want to do all the enter update exit. And then I'm gonna give this, I'm gonna put all of this in a
Object called
variable
circles.
called circles. And then what I'm gonna do is first, I'm gonna exit. So this is concept. I am now getting confused with all the
never
colors.
use more than one color. This is very amazing.
I should have, I don't know, the things I get myself into. The first step I want to do when I'm doing enter, update, exit, the whole shebang, is this part where I just tell D3 to do the bind the data, do the calculation.
Got it.
Then what I do is I take circles dot exit dot remove.
This would be happening like here?
So this, okay, I'm gonna make some more room for this circles thing. So this will be on a new line.
Right there, yes.
Yeah,
okay,
right
got
here.
It. Got it.
I just wanted to.
That was okay, I understood that this equals circles.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. And so, okay, so imagine that this is in the following
I got
line.
it, I got it.
Okay, and so what's happening here is this is basically the return value of .data, and it's saying, and here another thing that .data would have done is say, okay, there's ID 2, ID 4, so this remains, but these two need to go. So these two are the exit selection. And so this we call the exit selection. And it is the two circles with ID 1 and 3.
Because they're not here.
Because they're not in the new data that we're trying to render.
But where here values is here, but I don't see anywhere where you referred to val2.
Okay, so very good point. You've caught me. So technically speaking, okay, let me do this.
Like that makes sense to me, but how did it know to compare?
So
Oh, you just said that. Oh, you're just overwriting the values changed.
yeah, so
It's kind of like, isn't that a thing that React does or something? It's just like something changed, update stuff.
don't
Sorry,
go there. Don't
don't
go
go
there.
there.
Don't go there. So you're catching me. So what I usually do is I put this whole enter, like I put all of this code into a function, and every time that you want to animate a new set of data, or you want to like somebody clicked on something and you want to update the data,
okay.
you will then
call that
function and pass in the new values.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I was like trying to.
I get it. It totally makes sense. So this is not an automatic process where this is always like looking at what the current values are. It's a process by which you can sort of pull what's in the DOM and compare it to your data and update everything.
Yeah. So the thing with D3 is that you
Okay.
need to do everything.
Yes.
You need to do absolutely everything. Like React and Vue
Yeah.
and stuff, like they're doing this magically
Got
underneath
it.
the hood.
P5 is like that
Oh,
as well.
okay. Wait.
You have to draw. Nothing's going to happen in P5 unless you're explicitly drawing.
Yeah.
To me, this feels almost like more automatic than P5. But arguably, it's the same idea, actually. And I think the difference is the mechanism by which things are drawn in P5 is this setup and draw function.
Yeah.
And here, it's really about, it sort of starts more with the data and
Yeah.
enter, update, exit.
And also, I think that the fundamental difference between D3 and P5 is that P5 defaults to canvas. And so
Right.
setup and draw makes a lot of sense, because then
Yeah.
like you set up the canvas and then you draw, and then if you want to animate,
Right.
you clear
You
canvas,
redraw
draw,
everything.
clear,
And this is actually
draw.
updating SVG elements.
Yes, because SVG elements will stay in the DOM, and you need a way to be able
Right.
to remove it or
Right.
append it or update it.
But I don't want to go too off track here, but in D3, you can also say use canvas instead of SVG.
Yeah.
But your code doesn't have to change, or it changes a little bit.
So actually, the great thing is, if you want to use canvas, I don't think you need any of this code.
Oh, okay.
Because with canvas, like we said, it's just about
Got it.
like clear, draw, clear, draw. And so with canvas, what you might do, like with canvas, all you would do is in the same function that you're drawing, instead of going through this whole hassle of a process, we would just pass in the new data, clear the canvas, just redraw the new data. And so you might be like, why are we going through all of this trouble? Because if you want to learn D3, every single example, other than the examples for Canvas, will have this whole pattern, and it's really helpful to know what's going on.
Yes, got it. Okay, continue.
There's also a tangent about like SVG versus Canvas and when you want to use which, but that's a whole tangent. But yeah, so what was I talking about? Oh, okay. So this dot exit is basically telling D3 that I want to, like, please give me this exit selection, which will include these two DOM elements, and in this dot remove, we will actually be, that's the function that actually removes it from the DOM. And so once we call this, what's going to happen to our SVG is this gets deleted and this gets deleted. So that's what the state looks like after this exit selection, or sorry, after this code is executed.
So ID number 4 is not added because the exit is only for giving you what's missing and removing. And am I going to guess correctly that update will add number 4?
Very close. Very close.
Enter? We need another enter?
Yes.
Oh, because we just put exit before enter.
Yes.
Oh, we're not actually getting rid of enter and replacing it with update.
No.
We needed to add exit first.
Yeah, so I've gotten the, like...
Could you do them in any order? Because you're kind of setting up, or it's
So-
important to do exit, because here it says enter, update, exit, so that's kind of what I was imagining
But
we'd see then.
conceptually, like, because this is kind of, over the years, I've like developed this order because, and I reasoned it out once, or a few times, and now I'll have to talk it through
Yeah,
to
okay,
reason it out.
Okay, but enter is
there's
going to
a
get
reason
us
for it.
the missing one. Okay.
Yeah, there's a reason for it, and I don't remember it off the top of my head.
But yeah, so what we want to do is dot append like we had before. And then this is where you can say like dot attribute, like you can set your attributes.
And so what this does is, like you guessed, it will
Say, okay, in this SVG, what's missing is the 4. And so we're going to go and create
Oh.
this
Two.
line. Yeah?
2 is still 10. Update will change that to 20. So exit's for removing, enter is for adding, and update is for existing things with changed data. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I love doing this actually because I always feel like I'm not like explaining it 100%.
Yeah.
And so
No,
it's
I
really
don't know
helpful.
any of this stuff. I've tinkered with D3, but I'm just in that place. You've been there. Everybody watching has been there, where you like don't know the thing, but you found some example.
Yeah.
So you just like move some stuff around, and then you kind of got something, and you move on. Do what they like.
Yeah.
Like P5, I feel like I know the inner mechanics of how things work, so I can go a little deeper. But this is completely new to me.
I also 100% agree with everybody that's like Canvas and P5 are easier to grok
Right.
because like you don't have to worry about like persisting DOM elements,
Right.
removing them,
Right.
updating them.
Right.
And like all you have to worry about is clear draw.
Yeah.
And so like I honestly feel like P5 and Canvas is the more fun one, but like with D3, well, so with SVG, and D3 can deal with
Yeah.
HTML elements, SVG elements,
Right.
Canvas.
But I think that's always important that people get into this trap of like, oh, should I be using this one or this one? Which one's better? This one's better. Oh, this one is no good. I like my thing. And instead, all of these libraries, it's not a zero-sum game.
They're all tools.
They all are tools that have their own value. And like you might say like, oh, hi, I've never programmed before. Oh, why don't you take a look at P5?
Yeah.
Or, hi, I program in JavaScript and I have this giant data set I want to visualize
Yeah.
in SVG. They're like, oh, why don't you take a look at T3?
Yeah.
So it's not, I think we can fall into that trap of like, I have to like prove that the one that I like is the one that you
There's
should
like
be
a
using.
weird internet
Yeah.
stan culture.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand
Yes.
it. These are
Yeah.
all, like you said,
Yeah.
like they're all tools.
Yes.
Use them where they make
Makes
sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the one last part, and this is going to be,
And then what I have to do is I have to remember this enter selection in here, in this variable. And this is the part that's going to get a little bit weird if it hasn't already, Dan. And I'm realizing that I'm running out of space.
Yeah.
So wish me luck. I'm gonna be over. I'm gonna just do this third part over here. So this is going to be the update step. And what I'm doing here is say enter dot merge circles dot adder and whatever attributes.
It's funny, I've never said adder before in my whole life. And you can think, at first you're like, what is this adder? Adder? No, but that's probably a thing. That's a way to say that. ATTR. Adder.
Yeah. So this is probably there's a lot of weird things,
Yeah.
and this is probably the weirdest one. So what this is saying is I have my enter selection, which was this 4, and dot data. This actually also returns you the update selection, which is this 2. And so I'm saying, give me this
enter selection of 4, merge that selection with this update selection of 2, and then set the attributes, whatever attributes I need. In this case, what I want is to set the attribute radius, and do, and then, I want to use the d.r.
And that would be here also, right?
So the reason why I have this is because.
Oh, you don't need it anymore.
So here, it doesn't apply to us because, okay, the best way to describe it is if you have attributes you want to set that will never change, do it here. So maybe I actually want my fills to be red.
Got it.
So that means that every time I create something,
it can never update.
It will never, this attribute will never be updated. And so I'll just do it on creation just because that's much more efficient. You can put this down here and the same thing will happen, but you just don't need to. And I'll put any attributes that are data dependent off of this thing, chained off of this thing. And so now that we have this one line, this radius will become 20. And this is the code for enter, update, exit.
So I have an interesting question here.
Yeah.
So enter maps exactly to this function called enter. Exit maps exactly to this function called exit. But update, there's this function called merge. So there is no actual function called update. The process of updating is merging the existing circles with the new data. So it's called merge. Is that kind of?
Yeah. So basically, the update selection, you can think of it as I think of the update selection as whatever is existing and then needs to be kept. But yeah, honestly, it's a little bit that one's a little bit weird of a one. So now that we've gone through all of this pain, let me show you the easier way to do it.
Oh, because I think I have this here. So I just found over here this notebook. But this is from 2012, so it must not be. Oh, this is it's got some examples of enter. We can see this enter, add, merge. These are like that. But what I was looking for was that somebody was telling me there's a new thing called join.
Wait. Hold on.
Go back to that?
Go back to that, and then go up. And so this is basically, well, actually, that's not even really.
This is old. This is from 7 years ago. So my Google search was a little off.
Wait, so the thing I wanted to show you is what someone linked to.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. It's called join, right?
Yeah, data join. So it's selection.join. Try the D3 selection.
That's what I was.
And then do find .join. Selection.join. Yeah.
Okay. So here I'll let you stand over here. You can point to over there. People will be able to follow it more easily. Yeah.
This is interesting. So this .join, I think came out in a newer version of D3, where it just abstracts away all of the pain that we went through. And we went through this so that you can understand how it works. But just do this.
So join is kind of there's going to be new stuff. There's going to be stuff that's gone. There's going to be stuff that was there, but the values changed. Join's going to account for and update the DOM elements.
Just automatically do everything. And if you want specific things to happen, if you still want,
you have these callback functions.
Do you like all the pain we just went through?
Yeah.
For me to just be
this is good because it's interesting. To me, I have encountered similar things like this. You can jump to use await and async in new fancy JavaScript. It's not that new, but without looking back at what all this sort of gobbledygook of promises are, it's a little confusing what's going on. So this to me is a little bit similar. Yes, we could have started with just this join. But at least for me, and having seen D3 code before, having this more sort of like full explanation of it, now, again, it's like the reward. You get your dessert here, join.
Yeah. So I actually personally have never used join before.
How new is this?
I think, so disclaimer, I stopped using enter, update, exit, period, last March when I started using Vue. Because React and Vue, again, do all of this underneath the hood.
Got it.
And so the way I actually like to dev, and it makes me a faster developer, is I use D3 to do all of that data translation. So last week when we did all of those scales, I used D3 for that. I used D3 to like calculate positions for me, and like XY positions, SVG paths. And then when I actually need to go render to the DOM, I use Vue. So I stopped using enter, update, exit. So it must have been between last March and now. So I personally never used it, but I think if you don't want to use, like if you only want to use D3 to draw and do everything, then I would highly recommend checking out the data.join.
Somebody, Harpreet in the chat, suggested looking at this. Let's see if this particular example, which explains enter, update, exit. Is this the one you're looking at? Alan Smith's block. Yeah, cool. So thank you. I can add a link to this in the video description as well. I wanted to show two things. I don't know if you saw these, but two people created. Let's start with this one, actually. So based on Friday's stream, two people made their own versions of this. This one is by Stefan Reifenberg. Let me open it in a new window. And we can see here, film flowers based on the original. So one thing I love about Observable is how you can annotate with Markdown. So it's really nice to be able to do that. And you can see the code is here.
Like, he made the grid so much nicer too.
So these are beautiful. You know, it's something about also the, with these kinds of projects, the repetition and the arrangement of all the different flowers is really what kind of brings out the visual for me. I feel like I had a student was working on a project, and it was like a sort of beautiful pattern, but as soon as you could see like 100 variations of them all in a grid, you got this other sense of what that pattern was like. So that's really nice. So this looks like pretty similar to what we did, but just with a bit more thoughtfulness in terms of color and the ranges. But the other one that somebody made, which I'll go here, Anthony McAteer, or Spectral Flame, I recognize that name from YouTube chat, created something very similar, but with a totally different data set.
Yeah.
So let's look at this. So this is popularity and contribution flowers of coding challenges. So I have a playlist. I think it has like I don't know what number I'm on, but 150 something. They're just like videos of like a coding challenge. So there'll be, actually we could look at the data here, where there'll be like a Starfield, a snake game, all these different things. So I guess what's interesting is to think about first of all, what does it mean for something to be popular? I suppose that's tied to maybe the number of views. Is that the right metric for popularity? Interesting question. Height of the background, size of flower, and height is set to the views. The number of petals is how many contributions. And contributions is a thing that if you go onto the Coding Train website and go to like coding challenges, I'm pretty sure I think the 10 print one, this has the most contributions. So if I go to here, you can see these are all versions that people made after watching this video and seeing this is the example of the pattern. So this is like we were talking about, one of the things Shirley and I were discussing is like, when you're making an example, like how far do you go with it? Like, do you add all the features? Do you make it beautiful? Or do you like sort of leave stuff for the person who's going to receive the example to build on top of? So it's hard to find that line. But let's take a look at this. So if we look at this, we can see here's all the data, and then here's the text is there, and this this is just the number of what challenge it is. That's the name of the challenge,
what this down here, like what the curve, because there's a difference in how long the arc is.
Right.
Like some of these are really long, and some of these
is that Spectral Piano is in the chat.
Ooh.
Actually, Clock has the most. Oh, they're a little bit behind.
Okay.
So you can ask your questions. We'll get them
Yeah,
answered.
so I'm wondering, so there was popularity, that was the size, and then
The
and
description
then-
up here
Oh,
says.
here, by the way, you could if you go down, if you could just do this to hide it.
Oh, got
Yeah.
it. So it says views is
Height.
size and height of the background.
Okay.
Number of petals is the number of contributions.
Okay.
So maybe this is also tied to views. Maybe that's what's talking about the background.
Really? 'Cause-
Yeah, it makes sense because you can see this one over there has 3 petals and a much smaller arc, whereas that snake game has a lot of petals and a much larger arc.
Oh.
The background curve is just the views. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, cool. I love also that you did this, which is you can do this very similar to in Illustrator. You can do stop.
Oh, sorry.
Stop, stop.
Sorry, we're already this one. This one.
Okay. So this text that curves around, the way you can do that is an SVG path, and then you can draw like a semicircle with like an SVG arc or path arc, and then you can say I want to have the text along it. So that's really cool. And I think the same thing probably happened at the bottom because you can see like the 31 and 32.1, they're like following an arc. So that's
Right.
super cool.
Right.
And I also really love the different, like you went above and beyond. This is so awesome. Like look at the different like petal shapes. There's one here, there's this one that I think is a little bit, so there's, 34 is different because 35.2 is what we started with, and then 31 is different, and then the traveling salesperson one is different. So there's 30 is different, 31 is a different petal, the one down here is a different petal, the one traveling salesperson is a different petal.
Yeah, this
That's
is
so
really cool.
awesome.
So I'm curious also Spectral Piano, like so from this is all in a playlist, so certainly with the YouTube API, which I have actually never investigated really in a video, I should definitely do that. You could get a JSON file that has all the videos in a playlist, their name, presumably the number of views, but the contributions is something that's on the Coding Train website, which is separate from YouTube. I wonder if that was done by scraping like the Coding Train GitHub or just sort of manually entered. That's kind of an interesting. So that's what's also, I think, what may not be so obvious to the viewer here is there's like
There's
multiple
2 parts,
levels.
yeah.
This is not all
This is so
information
cool.
that's part of. So that's great to see. Have you done this film flowers example in other workshops and things? And have people
Yeah.
made projects with their own data in a similar way? Or?
So I haven't. No, actually, it's cool because I've gotten people that because I released it 3.5 years ago, and so people have done it with different like different data sets and different visuals. Like there was someone that did, I think every episode of Gilmore Girls. But like instead of flowers, it was toast or something like that. I think it was Gilmore Girls,
Yeah.
and like it was toast and different like jams or something. And they were like, it was inspired by our film flowers. There was like some other people that did like butterflies or something like that. And then in the workshops I have held, like people have, they didn't use a different data set, but the petals that they've done are like really beautiful.
Yeah.
Like we were staying at I think the Shangri-La for one of the workshops, and one of the students actually used the Shangri-La, like he like redid the Shangri-La logo,
Oh, wow.
Shangri-La logo, and used that as the petal.
Oh, wow.
And that was like
That's wild.
really beautiful.
I also thought you were on another. Kate
time.
Weekman was reminding me
no.
that we're
It's fine.
it's 5:05. Okay, I built in a little extra buffer for myself, but we're going to finish up in the
Okay.
next 5 minutes. So if there are other questions, we can try to answer one or two. But I wanted to mention because you were on, I think, is it a Twitch stream that's Jason Learn with Jason?
Yeah.
And you went through like a kind of similar project on that, or that was something totally different?
So he also wanted to do something
Yeah.
with film flowers. But for him, what we did was we got his YouTube data, and
Yeah.
we are making holy buckets.
Okay. Oh wait. Oh, is it still ongoing?
Yeah. So we are like part 2 now. I don't know. I don't.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're still making so that one is that we went and so we designed a whole bucket, and we've like assigned different data to different parts of the bucket. Because he has an inside joke with his stream chat where instead of swearing, he says "holy buckets."
Got it.
And so it's like a bucket with wings and halo and like
Huh.
It's very cute. It's very cute.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
I just pulled up, I think, what's the archive on YouTube, but I believe that the streams happen on Twitch. Actually, I should look more at this. I've been noticing that because I do most of this live streaming by myself, I haven't really thought about how too much about how to do something with more than one person. And I've noticed like people have nice setups that involve a little picture-in-picture and multiple screens. And so anyway, this has been great having you here as like a guest. Thank you for, I've had guests before, but thank you for going with the awkwardness of like this whiteboard, weird table and everything. I'm looking to see if there's any last questions. Thank you, Kate Weekman, for posting links in Twitch. And then you used to stream like on your own. Should I not be mentioning this? Are you ever thinking of doing that again?
No, I want to do it next summer after life settles down.
Yes. Okay, good. So you'll have to we'll stay in touch, of course, but you'll definitely have to let me know so I can alert the Coding Train audience, choo-choo. And so we didn't make any changes to this code, but hopefully now that we had Shirley back to more slowly talk through all of this wonderful stuff, that this helped you understand some of it. You still can, if you would like, make a project based on this example.
Can I give the
three? Yes, give and Shirley had a few different exercise ideas for you.
Because I think to kind of fully finish it, first thing would be put the titles in. So you can do that by creating a text within each group, like a text element within each group. Put in the titles of every movie on the flower. And then we can also do another mapping, and the mapping would be the genre to the colors. And then the third thing would be a mapping of, different petal shapes for different parental guidance ratings, if you want to go through the rest of the exercise.
And all of that is all of those features are in the version of the project that's on your website here?
Yeah, so if you go back up a little bit, so this is, the parental guidance rating. Yeah, parental guidance rating and the colors. So those two are the last little bit if you want to go through it and like kind of finish try some other scales, and then clean up the code.
Yeah. So you saw my kind of crude version that I hacked together and Shirley helped me with. So that's kind of like the raw guts of everything. You can see a much more polished version with more thoughtfulness and ideas about different designs. So I think on one hand, what you could do as an exercise is try to match some of this by adding color and shapes and more pieces of data. But you could also get creative and make your own.
Yeah.
Or you could also like take the same visual motif but connect it to a different data source.
Yeah.
So many possibilities. So maybe what we'll do, we'll see how this goes, but for now, if you make something, the two places you can share it would be the comments of this video or the previous video. You can also share it, probably we'll see it more quickly or easily if you share it on Twitter. So we have @Schiffman as me, but more importantly, @SXYWU. Yes?
Thank you.
So let's just, SXYWU, Twitter. And pull up Shirley's Twitter page here. And so, look, there we are. So Shirley, @SXYW on Twitter. And then I've been trying to, what we'll also do is create a page. So no, I'm looking for, somewhere here I guess it's not in this menu yet, but there is a page for guest tutorials.
Ooh,
I should know how the website works. But there'll be a page, I'll make a page on the website where people can also submit and it'll show up as a list. If I go to this one, you can see here's like people's versions they made from it. So we'll make a page like this. That might take a few days. Violet they are the GitHub community manager to help make that page. So I'll be in touch with Violet about that.
Awesome.
And they'll help put that together.
We didn't get to any Q&A. I'm so
yeah.
sorry.
Well, we did. We've been answering questions all along.
Okay.
Yeah. See. Well, okay, we can ask one question. We can't really see it. I'm curious what she, referring to Shirley, thinks of the Colot's visualization.
What's Colot's
I don't think
visualization?
so. That was one of my more. So I started this new series. I'm so embarrassed. Called Coding in the Cabana. And as I'm making these videos at home, I have a little garden. And so this is a particular visualization of a mathematical number sequence called the Colot's conjecture.
Okay.
And it produces a pattern that looks like, if the code still works. What did I do to this code that it's like now it's decided to crash the browser? Oh, there we go.
Ooh.
This takes a while to render. It makes this pattern. What's crazy about this is the math for this number sequence. You take any number, and if it's even, the next number is itself divided by 2, or if it's odd, you multiply it by 3, add 1, and divide that by 2. And it's a famous conjecture in mathematics because it's not proved, but the conjecture is that any number you start with, you'll eventually, that sequence will end up at 1.
Whoa.
So, and then this is a visualization of a variety of the paths of all these numbers based on even and odd, making left or right turns, and you get this like plant-like structure. This is
really
no
beautiful.
invention by any means of mine, and most of the stuff that I did is based entirely on this number file video, which about the Colot's conjecture, and you can see it here. And there's actually somebody I bought this book. I don't have it here, but there's somebody made a coloring book of all these math algorithms. It's wonderful. Anyway, so that was the one question. What do you think of this?
It's really beautiful. I
Yeah.
should say, Dan, that it's, if I really think really deeply about it, this is kind of really amazingly miraculous because me getting into generative visualizations and generative data art is a lot thanks to your nature of code.
Ah, okay.
And there was a whole project I did where I watched your Perlin noise. That's how, and then I referred to your fractal tree algorithms. And
Was that the San Francisco?
The SFMOMA one.
SFMOMA one, yeah.
That was basically all of a majority of the visuals in there is based on what you've taught. So if I take a moment and think about it really deeply, I need to thank you for being amazing.
I wasn't fishing for this. I was not fishing for this. I do want to say though, actually, is there a recent conference talk that has a video online of you showing some of these projects? But people could just go to your website.
It's about a year outdated.
But a year's not that outdated.
I do a lot in the year.
Yeah, no, I know, but I was just thinking because you gave a presentation here about some of these projects that people got to see. So seeing these projects, you talk them through is really nice. So yeah. So anyway, you should check out the project I think that Shirley was referring to, or that I was referring to just now, is this one called Send Me Love from SFMOMA. So if you haven't already, thank you so much. Visit Shirley's website. Thank you to Shirley. You never know, we might just come back tomorrow for another half an hour. You're like, oh, wait a second, one more thing. But we'll definitely continue. I look forward to hearing from people in the audience and things that you make. Thank you for
so nice.
and LOM, L0M. Yeah, so we'll definitely, but you should stay tuned. You don't need me to bring Shirley on the internet to you. If you wait till maybe this summer, as life settles down, you might be able to find Shirley live streaming on Twitch. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm really overstayed my welcome. I used up all my buffer, so I'm going to switch this to, put this music on. And switch to the wallpaper. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in.